Hello, my name is Oliver StJohn. Today I'm going to show you how to build a national super from a flat pack kit that we get from the suppliers. It sounds pretty straightforward. There are a few hiccups on the way that can happen. So my aim today is to show you how to make one properly that you can then use for your beekeeping. Right, so what equipment do you need? I've got a pot of PVA glue. This is waterproof glue that I've put into a small pot just for convenience and ease of application. A pair of pliers, good for pulling out bent over nails. A nail punch, good for knocking nails into the wood once they're knocked in by the hammer. The hammer itself, which is a 20-ounce hammer, you might prefer a 16-ounce hammer. This is a mallet, rubber mallet, good for positioning wood without damaging it. A block of wood which doubles up as a sandpaper block as well. The nails I use are these ones which come from one of the suppliers in a handy little pack. I've got 2.5 inch wire nails, 2-inch wire nails and a scutcheon pins. The 2.5 inch nails are structural. These are for fixing the inner panels and these are for fixing the runners. The runners are metal runners. In this case I've got 10 position or 10 frame castellations, and these are fixed on so that these frames are spaced nicely. In addition, I use a clamp occasionally. This one came from Screwfix. I don't think they do it anymore, but I'm sure they do an equivalent. But just make sure the jaws open wide enough for your national. Now over here I have a crown board. This is my tool that I use instead of a square. Because the crown board is square, then I know that my box will be as well, and you'll see me using that later. So these are the parts of the hive. These are all cedar, white cedar, slightly knotty, but I filled those, and these have been sanded down as well. So what we've got is the outer panel. These have the grooves for the inner panel and the mortises for the locking bars. Let's move on the other side. I've got the inner panels. These are effectively just plain pieces of wood. And then we've got the interestingly shaped locking bars. You've got the upper locking bar with its square profile. This rebate here that I'm pointing to with my finger, I'm also holding the camera, not so easy to do, is where the frames sit. And then you've got the lower locking bar, which is shaped with a slope, a bit like a roof, to allow water to drain away. Two of those, two of everything else. And this is what we're trying to produce. This is a brood box, so it's another 3 inches tall. But as you can see, we've got the outer panel, we've got the inner panel. I paint mine black. The upper locking bar, and you'll notice this part here is flush, so the rebate finishes flush with the top of the inner panel. I've then got, in this case, plastic runners. You can have metal runners, plastic runners which lift the frame up by 1 bee space so that bees don't get squashed underneath the frame. Let's just get a frame so you can see one going in. There you go, and this is the frame fitting in, and you can see at the bottom here you've got 1 bee space. There's no bee space at the top, so this is a bottom bee space hive, which is what the national is by standard anyway. So that's what the box looks like. You'll notice it's cedar. I've sanded it nicely, and I'll probably end up tongue oiling it as well. The first thing I do is lay my outer panels on the bench and just check them over. They're wood, they're a natural product. As you can see, I've already filled the knots here. They're all sanded nicely and good to go. I then take the locking bars. Remember the profiles of the locking bars. You've got this one, which is the lower bar. It's got the slope, allows the water to drain off. And the first thing I do is apply some glue to the shoulders. It's just a smidge, bearing in mind that the idea is nails hold the wood together until the glue dries. So a smidge on the shoulders, doesn't matter if it's a bit too much, you can always clean it off later. And then I put this into the box, like that. Now just to show you, that's what the box is going to look like. This is the lower one, allowing the water to come off, and this is the top of the box. So I then pick up each locking bar in turn, check which one it is. This is the top one because it's square. It's got the square profile. So the glue's applied, and then I can just put this in like that. And you'll notice that this is now level with the top of the outer panel. Carrying it on, bit of glue, a bit heavy on the glue there. And finally, the last top locking bar. Okay, so you can see what I've done now. I've started building the box. So by putting this outer panel on, we complete the box. We just put all the joints together. If we want to knock them tighter, we can just use the piece of wood to protect the cedar. And just knock it into place. Okay, whenever any glue appears, just give it a wipe. We don't want it dripping everywhere. And now we can start nailing it together. Now, one of the things I teach when I'm teaching hive assembly is to always make sure that if you're nailing into wood, that you're actually joining two pieces of wood together. So I'm actually going to nail through here into there, but I have seen people put the nail into that piece of wood, at which point it only becomes a decoration. So a nail is always for joining two bits of wood together. So what we're going to do is we're going to nail the joints together. Very straightforward. We just find the approximate centre of this tenon, which is going to be there. I'll mark it so you can see. And now I'm going to put the nail in there. You'll notice I'm knocking the nail in at an angle, although it's vertical from this direction. It's at an angle there. That holds the joint together better, and also means if when I put a nail in here, which I will subsequently do, the two won't bang into each other. Notice I'm holding the hammer, using the handle. Some people hammer like this, doesn't work. Try it up there. And knock that into its flush. Don't smack the wood so you dent the wood, just do it so it's just flush. And then you probably do this after you've done all four, but I'll show you how to do it now. Using my nail punch, just knock the nail, 2 hits, so it's below the surface. Can you see that? Just below the surface there. So repeat that for the other 3. Nail punch. So straight away those 2 locking bars are now fixed to the outer panels. Turn it over, do the other side. Again, 4 more nails. You notice I'm stopping just short as to get the hammer hit the end of the wood so as not to leave a dent. Occasionally you'll get it wrong. Just bang the nail straight and carry on. Now this seems to be into a knot, so I'm going to take this one out. Try again. Okay, so what it is actually a knot, it would appear here. So I'll try again and see if we can get it going this time. Basically by hitting it a little bit harder. and that's worked. The other two, say if there's a little bit of adjustment needed, use the mallet just to bring the joints in nice and tight. And that's all 8 nails in. Use my nail punch. And we've now got a box. Okay, looking at it properly, we've got the slope here, so this is going to be the top. The water flows away. Make sure you've got matching locking bars on this side, so the slope at the bottom and the top bar at the top, and that's the recess where the frames are going to sit. To check for square, I use a crown board. Just place it on and just make sure it's square. As you can see here, it clearly isn't square. We've got a bit of a slope that way, so that's very easy to fix. Just push it like that, give it a little tap. Use your special square again. Perfect. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the inner panels into the grooves. So what you do is add a bit of glue into the groove. Same for the other side. Not too much glue, just enough that when you spread it with your finger, it's pretty well covered the whole surface. Rub any excess off on a cloth, or do what I do and rub on the inside of the lower sloping locking bar. What that means is when the inner panel's in place, the two will be stuck together nicely, so any water won't go in between the gap. It'll be shed off the sloping locking bar, which is the whole purpose anyway. I only do the bottom locking bar because we're going to slide the inner panels in, and we don't want glue smearing down the face. So what I then do is have a look at my inner panel, and what I'm looking for is a nice smooth surface. This is the bit that's going to be visible. These are both good both ways, so I'll just go for that one. And slide it from the top into the groove. Sometimes they go in nice and easily. This one's slightly banana shape, but you can knock it down and you see it's sliding down the groove, and I just push it away, and that's now up to a point. If I want to persuade it to go down a bit further, I use my rubber mallet. What we're after is, you can adjust it upwards as well by hitting it from the bottom. I use the piece of wood at the bottom to move the whole box down in comparison. And what we're after is a nice smooth surface here. And the reason for that is when we use our hive tool to clean the hive, when we're using it, we want to be able to get into here. So what we don't want is this part to be raised up or lowered down. You will find that some suppliers recommend that you put the runner on first and then measure 7/16 to the top. It seems a bit pointless to me, when by having this smooth you can then put the runner on and adjust it to fit a frame, and that works just as well, if not better. Do the same for the other side, so inspect. Got a nice smooth surface there, smooth that side as well. So it doesn't really matter which way around, I'm going to go that way. This one's a bit tighter. What you can do is you can welly it like this. This is a top tip. Again, nice and square. And that's got into place beautifully already. Take off the excess glue. Use my rubber mallet. And again, we're looking for this flush surface here. Okay, so just show you what we've got. We've got the top of the hive, we've got the rebate in the locking bar where the frames are going to sit. You've got the inner panel flush with that rebate. Externally, we've got the sloping lower locking bar, so any water coming in is going to be washed away. Clean off any glue. Check the other side. Again, nice and flush. The water's going to flush away. So we want to fix our inner panels now, and what we do is we nail the inner panels to the locking bars. So what we do is approximately in the centre, maybe sort of 6-7 mil, and vertically down. We're nailing through the inner panel into the locking bar. We don't want to go too far that way because the locking bar only comes that far, and we don't want to come too far this way because it'll pop out. And we're going to use 3 nails, don't need more than that. There's one here just towards the end, about 3 centimetres, just over an inch from the outer panel, and the same on this side. That's nice and secure. 3 more, so 6 for each inner panel. Now the lower locking bar, remember we glued that, will now be glued and nailed to the inner panel. Remember the idea of that was so that the water can't get in this groove here because it's all been glued sealed. A few more nails. What we're trying to do now is just get this fixed in. So that's 3 each side, 6 in total. And 6, and there we have it. The inner panel is now, look what I've done, I've actually gone through, it's just come through and show there, so we'll see if we can get that one out. Of course I've hit it one too many times, so I might not be able to get this one easily. That's where the pliers come handy. No, we're not going to sort that out. So I'm going to finish off nailing it, and then I'm going to use the nail punch to punch it out of the way. So you can see what I'm doing. This here is just going to be in the way, cause problems when we're cleaning. Not a lot I can do about that. But it's now out of the way, so it's not going to hurt when I clean the hive, and the bees won't care that I've messed up. Okay, so we fixed the inner panel to the locking bars. That's nice and flush at the top. Ignore my nail that I've got there. So now we want to fix the outer panel to the inner panel, and that's very straightforward. On the Super you use 3 nails, Brood is 4 nails. And what we're looking to do is to nail the outer panel into the inner panel. So the nail goes through, hopefully you can see through my arm, nail goes through there. Can you see that? I'm not sure I made that very clear. This is probably clearer here. So we're going to nail through there. And what I do is I nail here, here, and then one exactly in the middle. Let me show you doing that. And I push the nails in, and leave them slightly proud. The reason for that is I'm going to use the ruler. So I now use my ruler across here. Okay, it's 15 centimetres, just under 7.5. I can put the central nail there. Again, the bees don't mind, you can do it by eye. It's for your own purposes that you get it right. With 1, 2, 3 nails all in a nice line, holding the outer panel to the inner panel. And again, just like before, we knot these nails below the surface. now repeat that for the other three. Hopefully the editor will fast forward over this bit, because there's nothing worse than watching somebody doing repetitive actions.
If they do my voice all squeaky, that's even funnier. And there you go, that's the last of the nails required to fix the outer panel to the inner panel. And that's effectively the assembly finished. Of course, we check for square using our trusty crown board. That's good, happy with that. Clear off any excess glue. Need your nail punch to get right into the corners. Now you'll notice that I'm using a workbench which is nice and flat. You might not have a workbench, but what you may have is an offcut of kitchen worktop, which is what I've used in the past. Or you could use the kitchen table, heaven forbid, but I would always suggest putting a piece of ply or something over the table, even separated by a blanket, anything to protect the kitchen table and your future relationship. So there you go, this is the whole box all done. We're also checking, as well as square, that it doesn't rock. If it does rock on the corners, if you imagine one corner is a bit high, you can adjust it by holding it over the edge of the table and pushing down on the appropriate corner to make it flat. That's completed. The next thing we're going to do is add the runners, or in this case castellations. And what castellations do is they lift the frame up off the flat piece. Don't forget this box needs to be bottom B space, so it lifts it up there and spaces them out evenly across. So what we do is we get this and we fix it with a scutcheon pins. These are the brass coloured pins. They're not brass, I've tried it with a magnet. Brass doesn't attract a magnet, these do. So they're brass coloured and they will corrode eventually. And then I use a frame just to position the castellation at the right height. Okay, and then what I do is put in the nail with a gimp pin. And what I've done, I've knocked it part way in. I don't want it to go all the way in. These are a bit tight, so that I can adjust it later. And again, the same. Part way in. This can be a bit of a pain to get going sometimes, so what I tend to do is use an ordinary nail and just start the nail off. And now the gimp pin, scutcheon pin, upholstery pin, whatever you want to call it. So we know this is right level. Check the other end again. What we're looking for is that to be flush. Two more gimp pins. Start them off with a nail. Voila, castellation in place. The final check, just to make sure it's not too high, is just to run your piece of wood over it, and it shouldn't really catch as it goes over. Just to prove, there you go, the frame's in nicely and it's flush. Let me just repeat that on the other side. So this is where the director makes it all run a lot faster while I just mess around doing this in slow time. Check it's not too high. Use another nail just to make the hole right. Same at the other end, it's all soft there. Start it, job done. And here we have the finished box, and you can see the frames just fit in. They're nice and flush, and at the bottom we've got one B space. This is the finished box. As you can see, it's got the frames in. These spaces, castellations allow 10 frames. And as you can see, they stop just short at the bottom, so that is one B space. So this is a bottom B space box, which is your standard national setup. 10 frames. These are SN1, standard national 1 frames, which are the frames which are smooth. They don't have any self-spacing on them. And that is the end. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Oliver, for a very clear, precise demonstration of how to assemble